In the first big win for President Milei and his plans to fix Argentina's broken economic model, the Ley de Bases, or so-called Omnibus Bill, has passed through the final stage of Congress and been voted into law. Having secured these measures at last, Milei and Finance Minister Luis Caputo say they're ready to move forward with the second stage of fiscal adjustments designed to fix Argentina's economy. After bouncing around Congress for 6 months, the so-called Omnibus Bill has finally made it through. It's been considerably slimmed down from the bill presented in January, with around half of the 600 articles in the original version having been removed. But this is a victory for Milei, as it's the first major piece of legislation his government has managed to get passed by Congress, and will allow him to move forward with his radical plans of privatizations and liberalizations of tax and labour laws. Many of the articles are quite controversial and represent a big shift from the past direction of Argentina. This is why the debates took so long and so many articles had to be modified or removed. There's a lot in the bill about privatization of state-owned companies, and a lot of the arguments centered around which should or should not be included, particularly over Aerolíneas Argentinas, the national airline, and Correo Argentina, the postal service. The thing about Aerolíneas, it was argued, is that it isn't simply a commercial airline, but in a country as large as Argentina, it represents an essential service, connecting distant provinces, even though some of these routes might run at a loss, kind of like provincial bus services that you might find connecting villages in smaller countries. And the post office in many countries is seen as a national symbol and can have functions far beyond simply mail, and competitive postal services already exist. At the end of the day, both Aerolíneas and Correo Argentina were removed from the privatization list in the bill. Of course, the passing of the Ley de Bases is only a first step on a much longer road, and there are many more steps to take before people start to feel results. The most popular demand is to remove the cepo al dólar, or simply cepo, which is the name for the controls on purchasing of foreign currency. Individual citizens can only legally buy $200 per month, which has created the black market exchange rate known as the dollar blue. In the last couple of weeks, the dollar blue, which I talked about at length in another video, has been surging ahead, again. Meanwhile, the official exchange rate continues to only creep forward at a pace laid down in December and strictly adhered to, a slow devaluation of about 2% per month. This is causing an ever-widening gap between the two rates, which can probably only be solved by another large devaluation of the currency, something that Caputo and Milei continue to rule out. Maintaining the cepo is driving the value of the dollar blue, which in turn links into inflation. However, Caputo continues to refuse to fix a date for removing it and only says when conditions are right. Creating the correct conditions to remove the cepo seems impossible without removing the cepo. Despite the promise not to devalue the peso again, it's difficult to see how the goal of unifying exchange rates can possibly be achieved without doing so. Another aspect of the Ley de Bases involves opening up Argentina to foreign investment by offering tax incentives and sweeteners to large companies wanting to do business here, particularly in the areas of exploiting natural resources, such as mining and forestry. These incentives, known as RIGA, have been criticised for handing an unfair competitive advantage to foreign firms and hamstringing local companies for years or even decades into the future. The two principal resources that foreign firms have their eyes on are the large gas and oil fields known as Vaca Muerta, or Dead Cow, in the south of the country, and the potentially very lucrative lithium deposits in the north. Lithium is essential for high-tech batteries for phones and cars, and has often been called the oil of the future. One of the largest lithium deposits in the world is shared between southern Bolivia, the Atacama Desert in northern Chile, and the north of Argentina. The area is only just starting to be exploited, and many companies and countries would like to get their hands on a share. China is already bidding for contracts, and Elon Musk's friendship with President Milei makes a lot more sense when put into this context. Competition for access to mining contracts is expected to be fierce, and the need for financial incentives has been questioned. The potential for environmental damage due to the extraction process of lithium mining are already becoming apparent in Chile, and there is fear that giving contracts without much regulation could create a long-term disaster in mining areas for a relatively short-term profit. There's also criticism that the mining contracts may hand too much untaxed profit to investors for taking away a national resource which should be used to benefit all Argentines through national development projects. Without a careful plan, it's possible to see a repeat of what happened in the past to so many countries when blessed or cursed with oil deposits. Thanks for watching. If you like this latest video, please give it a like. And if you're not already subscribed but want to see more content like this, just click on the button. If you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee in the link below. And until next time, que tengas un buen día.